But sit down, I can see you because over here sometimes. Just want to make sure you know what I look like. There you go.
Len, first I wanted to say welcome, and I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for the city thus far. So we're very appreciative as a city and as a council. But I wanted you to kind of talk about where you see yourself in the next couple of years and discuss some of the issues specifically to the city. And I just wanted you to kind of just give a broad statement, I guess, if you will, on where you see yourself in the next few years with the city.
With the city of Port Richey?
Yes.
Okay. Probably continue to tackle some of the things I've been working on for the last, 4.5 months. I've got, someone has to complete the State Auditor General's audit that's ongoing. The last word that we had was that they would finish that up or expected to finish it up sometime this spring or summer. There's a myriad of questions that we're answering now relative to a number of things. As a matter of fact, I got a proposal in the debt update from the EFPR group that did the city's audit last year. There are additional requirements now that would require not just that city audit, but also an audit of the CRE. So that's an ongoing process. The WOD, recently you gave a green light to getting Chris Martin with Ayers Engineering to work on a proposal, a conceptual, if you will, and bring it back. If I'm here for the next 2 or 3 years, I would definitely want to see that come to fruition. I think the sooner we can get something started, the better. There's some folks that think that Newport Richey talks a good game but doesn't deliver. I think my background, if you look at my resume, you can see that I've handled almost any kind of project that a city or a county manager can do. I've never done a waterfront district because I've never had the opportunity until here to be able to tackle one. But I have done large projects. When I say large projects, one of the largest one was a 40 million gallon a day wastewater treatment plant called the Rocky River Regional Wastewater Plant, and serving Cabarrus County and Concord, Kannapolis, and several other municipalities up in North Carolina. 40 million gallons a day is a large, as a number of you know who've been into business, building an airport, delivered it. So I think doing those projects gives me the wherewithal and the background to be able to handle the WOD. Also the dredge project that's been talked about for a long time. It's not drudgery to me. I like to see projects move forward. So those are some of the large scale projects, but also there are things in terms of leading the staff, providing, obviously providing leadership and instruction. There's been a great deal of turnover the last few years. What that does is affects your bench strength, if you will, institutional knowledge, which is extremely limited. I think I have a lot of experience planning, zoning, development, building, to be able to impart some of that so-called wisdom, if you will, to a number of the folks. And from my perspective, just being here this time frame, they appear eager to learn. And I like to consider myself at least a decent teacher in that respect and a coach. So I believe if I'm here 3 years from now, you'll see a remarkable improvement in that level of performance of the various departments that we have here in Port Richey. So those are some of the, like a thumbnail sketch, if you will, of where I'd like to see things go over the next 2 to 3 years.
Excellent, thank you. I wanted just to kind of open it up and just have an open kind of question and answer.
I'd be happy to start.
Okay.
He wants to be first. Yep. Since you've been here a while, I would think, what do you see as the city's weak points and where can we move to improvement? And on the other hand, where do you see the strengths of our city are and what can we do to also work with those?
Good. I think weak points, dropping back a second, is like that bench strength. A lot of new employees who don't have a lot of experience. But like I say, part of that's also a strength and an opportunity, if you will, because they're all willing to learn. You've got some folks that have been in positions short time frames and that were not really accustomed or trained to be in those positions. I've already started the effort if you will, the program of training. Several of them have went ahead and jumped into those training programs, and we're going to do even more. So I think that's a weakness. Probably paying attention to detail when it comes to policies and procedures, maybe an administrative managerial process, if you will. Florida's very unique. I've had the opportunity to work in several states as a city or a county manager, and also other states as a consultant, if you will, to cities and county managers. And Florida's got a very high standard, and I think it's good. So I think those are some weaknesses that haven't been adhered to in the past. Strengths. I had someone ask me today, why Port Richey? And of course, I can say very trite, why not Port Richey? It's maybe the reputation isn't what you want it to be today because of certain actions of individuals in the past, but the reputation can be rebuilt. The waterfront district is a marvelous place. It's a hidden gem. So people can drive up and down 19 all day and never know that it exists because they don't get off the beaten path, so to speak. So I think if I'm here, going back to that first question from the mayor, that strength needs to be developed. It needs to be marketed. It needs to be advertised. It needs to be developed properly with the lighting that we've talked about, street pavers, nice sidewalks, and venues that could be opened up. There's some property out there that the city could even look into acquiring for redevelopment purposes. You could do something like that would create another venue, if you will, on the waterfront itself. People could come in and stay the weekend or a week if they had the opportunity of a place to do so on the water. And then once they get there, you capture them because there's half a dozen restaurants or so and places to visit, so they would never have to really crank their car up. It's a captive audience. Was it Danny DeVito who said, other people's money, OPM? So if you're bringing those folks in, they're not adversely affecting the city, they're actually contributing to the well-being of the city. And the tourism dollars, I think, that has helped make Florida a very strong state, and we need here to take advantage of that opportunity.
All right, and then my other question would be pursuing grants, chasing grants. I know it's a tough one with staff. We're limited. What opportunities do you see if they're going to an outside source or doing something for obtaining some of these grants that are out there?
There are some outside sources. Matter of fact, some of the folks that we're working with now, like Ayers Associates, that's looking at the WOD, they've had success in the past with FWC grants and some others. And I've already talked to Chris Martin since he's going to work to expand the WOD project that's been approved, and also Nix Park to see if we can tap into some of those monies that would help stretch ours, leverage them, if you will. So those opportunities do exist.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
One of the weaknesses that I see for the city, probably longer term, is just when you're talking about policies, just record keeping, and I think that is one of the things that's catching up to the city a little bit as these audits come through. What would you do to kind of fix some of those issues?
We're looking now to improve for record keeping. Sal's done a pretty good job in part of this thing that we're doing. I'll say pretty good, a really good job, because he said to go back. That audit period starts back January of 16 and comes up in January of this year. So obviously it predates me by a number of years and months. But we've been fortunate with the staff to be able to go back and capture the different resolutions and ordinances and so forth that have been requested to prove certain things that have been asked. They haven't, I don't think there's any question they have asked that we haven't answered at least once. And usually what that does is it leads to another question, which means more research on our part. And so the records are there. It's just a matter of finding them. Sometimes they're not kind of disorganized to a degree, if you will. So we're in the process of pulling them together, and what I like to do is after the fact, when that's finished, and hopefully we'll find out obviously what the outcome is to be able to tighten up the administrative managerial policies as well as the other policies that have been asked about, and then put all those different files in in a central place, if you will. We've got some hard files, and we've also got some that are electronic files. So they're there. It's just a matter of discovering where they are, pulling them together, and I think we can do that in a very cohesive fashion.
Excellent, thank you.
One of our problems in the past is that we've had such controversy in here, and the citizens are more worried about transparency and communication on what's happening in the city hall. Do you feel that there's some way that you can help improve that situation, to improve that relationship with people so that they feel like nothing secretive is going on in city hall that you worry about?
Short answer is yes, I think I can. I think we've done some of that already. A lot of folks ask questions, and I think we're, not just myself, but also other members of your current staff have been really upfront and avant-garde, if you will, in terms of answering those citizen inquiries, those public information requests, if you will. And they're varied. You know, we get them handwritten. We've gotten them in the emails. So I would continue and try to improve on that to make sure that they know exactly what's going on. I think some of the things here this board discusses is very transparent. It's like, you know, I don't think there's anything we have to hide. I haven't discovered any real skullduggery, if you will, for recent nature. Maybe there was some in the past, but we'll pay for the sins of our fathers, so to speak, and then we'll move forward.
Well, we've had a lot of difficulty in the past, a lot of skullduggery is what you're saying. That's why citizens are really concerned about that. It's very important that we have an open door, transparent policy with our people so that they feel that they are getting the right answers and that the right answers are satisfying their needs. So that's very important.
I think. We are customers, and you know, it's like everybody says, which of transparency and honesty, trustworthiness, and we have to be all of those.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to focus, you mentioned that someone had asked you earlier today, like, you have a impressive resume, by all means. A lot of the organizations here that you've served with are much larger, Hernando County. Why do you want to go to a city the size of Fort Ritchie when feasibly you could go to another county or something of that nature? What is drawing you to Fort Ritchie?
Well, I was totally caught by surprise whenever I had that call a few months ago from Colin Bensinger. I'd been obviously through Fort Ritchie, because I lived in Promise, and still have a place in Hernando County, so I knew it was here. And I didn't know because I wasn't paying attention. I was actually working as a consultant for two private sector companies, and which I've done on and off when I've been engaged in the public sector. But my preference has always been to serve the public, so to speak. I came from a small town, growing up in. When I tell people in the Carolinas, I grew up in Mount Pleasant, they automatically think it's Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, which is across the river, if you will, from Charleston, South Carolina. Much larger place. The Mount Pleasant I grew up in North Carolina was like 1,200 people. So we're almost 3 times that size, and that small town is still there. It's they have a part-time city manager whom I know. As a matter of fact, he was one of my fire chiefs going way back when I was in Concord, North Carolina. I had the opportunity to hire a number of department heads because I was there a long time.
Len, can we pause for a moment?
We're just going to pause because we're going to make you.
We're going to mic you up so we can hear you a little bit better.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right, I'll hold it now. Okay. All right. So, I mean, it's I think you can be a small city but have big ambitions. I had a banker one time tell me that it's okay to reach for the stars, just don't overreach. So I think if we set a threshold as to where we'd like to be, and I've known a lot of times people ask about strategic plans. When I was in Hernando County, 190,000 population, larger as you've indicated. When I went there, I worked with our people on the comprehensive land use plan. And after being there for, well, a few weeks or months, whatever it was, I asked about a strategic plan. And my executive assistant brought me the comprehensive plan all over again. I said, no, I'm talking about a strategic plan. Something that's going to be a roadmap to show where we are today and then map out a future for us to where we'd like to be in 5 or 10 years. And so I wrote it because he didn't have one. And so, I would want to do the same thing here to develop a strategic plan to help the city grow in the right direction. And I developed that with the help of citizens. I had, for lack of a better word, town hall meetings across the county, churches, National Guard, Army, just different places, and got a lot of input. So that was very transparent. Plus, it also demonstrated that since Hernando's got that large unincorporated area called Spring Hill, but it's also got a lot of rural area. That small town I grew up in, it's still a rural area, but it's 30 miles northeast of Charlotte, which is a very large metropolitan area. So this area to me is attractive because, one, you've got things that you can redevelop, and I've talked to people who said, well, we need to go up because we don't have much room to spread out, and we need to take care of those things that we can redevelop to make sure we do them to the best way possible. You may only get one opportunity. So I look at Port Richey as an opportunity.
Council, before we continue, I just got word. Please make sure your microphones are on because it's you that they can't hear. Even his voice, even though it sounded softly, is still being picked up by the live mic. So they can't hear, and they can't hear some of you. So just make sure your mic's on.
Thank you.
You've been here a few short months and trying to get a feel of the city. Right now, what do you feel is the major challenge for Port Richey, and what direction or how should we move forward with it?
I see a couple of major challenges, really. One is the CRA audit that's going on. That devours an enormous amount of time, not just my time, but also some staff time. Sal's had to get engaged with it, as has our finance department, Tony Hayes, and a lot rests on Jim's shoulders because he's got the institutional knowledge that I don't have. So that's a major challenge. We're still suffering from COVID-19. I mean, we're not totally 100% open, and we don't know what the real effects of COVID-19 are going to be on Port Richey, the state of Florida, and beyond 12 months from now. I mean, there's increases in the cases all around, and so that could have another lasting effect on us. That challenges to help our businesses to stay alive. I've read numbers of articles across the country where you've got a lot of small businesses. Small city, lots of times you have small businesses. Yeah, we've got a large Kmart up there. They'll probably survive because of their corporate structure. But the barbershops, the restaurants that we have on the WOD, I think what we're doing to try to generate more attention and improve the WOD will help them long term. When we had the workshop here, they indicated that because of COVID-19, their business revenues and so forth were down substantially. When they had that one Back to Blue event, they said they had probably the best weekend they'd had in probably a year, if not more. So, I would want to get engaged with those folks, which we've already done, and pick their brains as to what they see we should be doing, which direction. So that's another major challenge that we have, is to try to maintain what we have and yet grow it somewhat. Part of that's going to be to maintain a healthy fund balance, if you will, in the CRA reserves, as well as to work our way toward the general fund. We've already made some progress in the 4 months or so I've been here, but I would like to see, if I'm here a year from now, to be able to give you a much better report and say, we were back here and now we're up there.
And today, we just had a fire chief that retired after 31 years And we have some other employees within the city that's been here quite extended period of time. These employees have experienced the last couple, 3 years a lot of things with previous mayor getting arrested. There's internal turmoil because of all the changes and not knowing what tomorrow's going to bring. This city has been made by the employees that are serving us residents, and they've done a lot, but yet there's still, it appears that there's some problems within. What can be done to fix that?
I had a similar situation over in Hernando County when I went there because the employees, because the Great Recession, if you will, had lasted a lot longer than anybody thought. So they hadn't had a raise literally in 7 or 8 years. And so they were in a bunker mentality. When I'd ask them about doing something, I'd come up with some projects that I thought we could do to improve the airport that the county owned. To do the strategic plan I mentioned a few minutes ago, they said, no, it won't work here, we can't do it. And so that's why I took it upon myself over a few weekends in a row, just to sit at home and start putting the skeleton of a strategic plan together, started putting some flesh on it. And I said, well, you know, what would be a good idea would be to get the staff, the department heads involved. So I assigned different areas to the different departments that made sense. The areas that dealt with the environment, those that dealt with our financing, those that dealt with the airport, economic development, community development, and it took me a while to get it jump started, but they jumped in, and some of them went to some of the town hall meetings with me to solicit input from the citizenry, and when it came time, there was one naysayer, honest to God, you could probably go back and pull that meeting, and he said that the strategic plan I had developed was tantamount to the Communist Manifesto. And I said, really? All it is a map that's going to show us where we are today and where we're going. And he says, yeah, but it's like you're planning stuff ahead. I said, what's your comprehensive land use plan? Usually they do those for, what, 20 years? Is that also part of a Communist Manifesto? He didn't really have an answer for that question, but we did that in public meeting, and he laughed about it afterwards. He just says, I just don't like strategic plans. And I said, well, you should have probably said it like that as opposed to accusing me indirectly of being a communist. But I think if we do something like that and get our staff involved, so far I haven't asked one to do something that hasn't jumped at the opportunity. And just like yesterday, I know we were blessed. We came through the hurricane that turned into a tropical storm in great fashion, and we still got some areas that we need to clean up. But I don't think any of our people complained about it. I got reports, all day on and off from Chief Soroy, who's leaving, as you indicated, also Chief Robinson and Sean, as well as talk with folks on the finance and so forth. And I did the local state of emergency after talking to Jim out of an abundance of caution, and I think forward thinking, because we didn't know how bad the storm was going to be. And if we didn't have something like that in place, there was no way we were going to get any kind of reimbursement from FEMA if we needed to. So this way, it was like a safety blanket, if you will. Yes,
That my mic wasn't on. I think one of the biggest challenges that you faced and that we faced within the last year was the budget. We came into it, our reserves were down lower than they had been in a while. And at the time, probably the only remedy was to make some cuts, which we did, and to raise taxes, which we had to do. One of my goals is to run more efficiently so we can provide the same service, but try and dial taxes back a little bit from where we were last year. From having been here for a few months, do you think that's a viable goal or something that can potentially be done as you're here and prepare the budget for next year?
At this point, I think we probably can do something like that. How much, I'm not really prepared to say, but I think the question came up that whenever we decided to do that 3.27% funding contribution from the general fund to the CRA, was, do we have to do this from now on? No, you don't. It can vary from year to year because that resolution was like for a 1-year time frame. So this coming year, you'll have the opportunity to look at it and see where we're standing with our reserves. And right now, they are better than a lot better than they were, not where I'd like for them to be. I'd like to have double that amount, and that would make me feel a whole heck of a lot more secure. And then I think everybody here would probably sleep better at night. So I think that would be an objective that we should have, is to look at the growth. I think we've had some projects that are coming on that may help with that tax base, and of course we'll see that whenever we get it from the property appraiser's office this coming year.
Excellent, thank you.
What would you, in terms of human resources, human management style, what would you define your management style is with employees?
I do management by walking around. I'm in my office, but I'm also around the building, and to see what's happening in the different departments, whether it's utility collections, or if it's with Sean and talking about public works, public utilities. I guess I learned a lot about public utilities right out of grad school 100 years ago. Sometimes it feels like that, but in eastern North Carolina, because I actually worked for a regional agency and had three counties that I worked on grants for, and also the cities they're in, community development block grants, economic development grants, and because that was a very rural area. But it was a great learning because I was able to get out in the field like I do here occasionally, and look and see what's going on with our roads, our streets. I know our lift stations. We've got some infrastructure problems that need to be addressed. That's going to be a challenge. I'm working on a CIP now, and I've already got I've got projects back from Sean in Public Works and Utilities. I've got it back from Chief Soroy a few weeks ago, and also Chief Robinson. And so if I'm here for a little while longer, I'd like to bring that forward and present it to City Council so that you all can consider it and decide. Some of them are short-term things over the next couple of years. Some of them are going to be longer-term, like 5 to 10 years, because there's no way we could. There's no way to tackle all of the public works and utilities things at one time. It's just way too big. But I like to look at my aspect of it as an administrator, as a manager. It's my responsibility to ensure that staff gets trained properly, and so some of that education and talking with them from my experiences and what I've done, also sort of like a teacher or coach, a mentor, if you will. I've had success in the past because some of my previous department heads went on to become assistant city managers or county managers at different places around the country. Some of them small, some of them large, but I felt like that demonstrated that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing.
I had another question, if that's okay. When you originally came to us, we were in kind of an emergency situation. We needed a temporary city manager, and fairly quickly, and we paid for it. I think your salary was much higher than we would normally pay because it was on an emergency basis. And it's some of the best money, in my opinion, the city spent, because I think you're able to, in your short time you're here, kind of right some of the issues that we had in the city. That having been said, I think moving forward, the pay scale that you have now as a temporary city manager isn't the type of pay scale I don't think the city could generally afford. I think we were paying a lot higher for the temporary basis.
Yeah, but he's doing it as a consultant basis, so it's a different pay
Okay.
scale, because he would
Okay.
then fall under
Self-employed.
benefits and that sort of thing, so it shifts.
Well, that was driving to my question here. Is it something you would be willing to work under the probably a lesser salary as a full-time city manager than you're making now?
I know that that would be the case, so I'm not, oblivious to it or anything like that. But like Councilman McCleary said, that I'm working as a consultant now, a professional services type contract, and so I would be willing to, if I'm the last man standing, so to speak, I would be willing to sit down with, if it's Jim or you or whoever, and to work out a contract that would be beneficial to both the city as well as to myself.
Excellent. Okay, I was just kind of curious because part of what we have to deal with is affordability in a small city. In your background, you manage much bigger, as has been pointed out, but that also is reflective somewhat in pay. So that was one of the concerns that I had.
Well, I'm going to give away the ending. He was here when we already talked about the salary, so he knows the salary range. So feasibly, he'd be agreeable to that.
Cat's out the bag.
I just wanted to confirm that. I know that, because that's one of the issues that I was concerned about
No,
is the amount of money that we pay the city manager.
I asked mine, I'm good.
One more. Some of the answers that you were giving and talked about moving forward, somewhat of a long term, you always refer to 2 to 3 years or 3 years, and it seems like that as you talked about being here, that time period was to 2 to 3 years, 3 years, and a few years. I kept hoping to hear something longer than that, which I never caught. And what would your intentions be if coming here as our city manager? Would it be for those 2 to 3 years, or?
It could be longer. It's obviously going to be it's a two-way street, so to speak, because it's up to the city council. When it's funny because the situation was similar when I went to Hernando County. I didn't know where Hernando County was, literally. I mean, I'd been to Florida, I'd been to Tampa, St. Pete, I'd been to Orlando, Jacksonville, a lot of places over on the East Coast around Jacksonville. But whenever I was selected there as the person to be the next county administrator, the chairman of the board at the time and the county attorney said, well, what would you think? Well, the advertisement that had been put together as a recruitment brochure said you had to have the skin of an alligator to be the county administrator in Hernando County. You can find a copy of it. I'm here to tell you. I can tell you where to go get it. It's real. But I also knew that the person that preceded me as county administrator he was let go after 30 to 33 months. Prior to him, I think the longest term was about 2 years. One lady survived 1 month. I had employees when I first went there, and I was their 7th or 8th administrator, and they'd been with the county like 12 years. So when I originally asked for, they said, well, what kind of contract do you want? How long? I said, 3 years. That's fairly typical in the business. And the long story short, the councilman looked at me and says, let's think positive, let's do 5. So if you decided you wanted to think positive and do 5 years, if that suits you better, I just had a physical within the last 30 days, and I'm good for another 100,000 miles.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And you've been with us for a while, so are there any other just general comments that you wanted us to know? Not just about what's going on now, but the future of the city?
One of the things that came up, I guess, after I was here for a while and starting some of the projects is because Jim made the mistake of giving me a list. It wasn't really a mistake, he meant to, but of projects that were kind of hanging out there. And so I looked at it as maybe this was like a to-do list. And I knew there was a couple of comments that maybe some members or some people thought I was going to come and maybe babysit. But that's not really my nature. Up in South Carolina, I had a county council member. There they call the county commissions county council, just like city councils. And somebody says, well, doesn't it worry you that sometimes you guys will mention something needs to be done, and the county manager will go do it before you have another meeting? He says, no. His answer literally was, good old country boy, I'd rather reach out and grab his ears and slow him down than have to beat him to start. So you won't have that problem with me beating me to start. I'm pretty much a self-starter. And I have babysat. I had 3 younger brothers and a sister. Don't have any children on my own. But I guess it's sort of like a family I sort of adopted. So if that's something you're looking for, then you've got the right guy.
Thank you. I think that's all that I had.
One quick one,
Go ahead.
and I promise this will be it.
Well, I got one after him, so that.
Okay.
If you were offered the position, city manager, would you invest by moving here and be a part of this community?
That is a possibility. I had that question earlier today. You just happen to be sitting close to the lady who asked. But yeah, I told her, I've already looked at places here, and so that's a good possibility.
What would be your, assuming we were successful and you had the reins in full, and you've done a lot over the past 4 months, I think, at this point to realize, what would be your biggest strategic desire to see in this city from your viewpoint? What would you tackle first or continue? I know you were talking about, continuing with the audit and getting that as a challenge, but what would you view as something you want to go after, something you want to work towards? Granted, we have, given direction for the continuing with the WOD, but from a management standpoint, city management standpoint, what would you attack?
Well, obviously that's on the table already, so something different would be to probably getting some of our folks more training, both from the HR perspective. I've already gotten Becky involved in getting training, so and she's enjoying it. Tony in finance, she has. Probably within the next week or so, what I'd like to do is get a new fund structure, if you will. Right now, we have the 2 investment accounts, and it's hard to determine who those funds belong to. I know they belong to the city of Port Richey. I'm not that obtuse, but which department? Is it from the water? Is it some other area? And so we've got, George and I and Tony so far have got a pretty good handle on how that should be divvied up, if you will, to create those different accounts. So I would work toward doing that. Also, I think you'll probably remember the presentation that Norman Brunn gave a few weeks ago on the building department and the new requirements and some of those reporting requirements. I'm working with staff now to select the right vendor, if you will, to either enhance or rebuild our web system, our website, because there's some weekly reporting criteria and requirements that we have to do. So I would want the staff, and Norman's already said that his contract didn't terminate when you all said yeah and approved that packet he brought. So he can work with us a few days a month or whatever it takes to get our folks trained. Once we do that, then we'll be off and running in that area. And also to set up that enterprise fund that we need for that department. So those are some things I want to tackle first, is to get that ferreted out, so that if you call me up and say, Lynn, how much money do we have in this area? I don't have to think about it. I can look and it's right there at my fingertips.
That's all that I had.
Don't have any more questions.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. And did you have any questions from us?
The simple one would be, and literally is, what all would you expect of me? I knew that was.
Probably more of the same. One of the things that I'm impressed by is I drive from my house very early some days and very late some days to and back by City Hall to and from the courthouse. And I generally always see your car there. So your work ethic, I think, is one of the things that's most impressive, particularly when you came here to hold down the fort, quote unquote, and you're here all the time. And that would be one of the expectations that I would have, is that you continue to put that work in that you have so far. But like I said, that would be one of the expectations that I would have.
That's fair enough. I mean, I think I have a decent work ethic due to my dad.
If you lived in the city, you could stay a little longer.
That is true. And I could walk with Mr. Mueller. He might outwalk me though.
All right, I think that's all that we have.
So what we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and I do appreciate the hospitality, everybody's so here. I've met numerous persons that, it's not very hospitable. It's good.
Thanks. And I believe that concludes our interviews. At this time, I see that there's a couple people signed up, and then we also have slated for discussion potentially as well. If you guys are okay, what I wanted to do is allow the general public to speak at this time. So I wanted to call Mr. Mueller up first.
Good, I think you guys did an excellent job.
Me too.
Thank you. Okay, you're all set too?
I'm good, believe it or not.
And
We tired them out.
And I see that there's other folks here. Anyone want to say anything? Okay. Come on up. Come on up. Welcome and good evening.
Okay.
Mrs. Scherer.
I'll give you a hello, miss. Sherry Scherer, 7802 Davis Street. I know most of you are new to this whole process. A couple of you have been here before. It's new to me, so I didn't know if we were allowed to ask any questions about what you were thinking or what, because I'm just looking at things. We only have 2 applicants now. Our pool greatly diminished. They both seem pretty qualified. One, has a longer history, but just me sitting in the back and thinking, do we want to be going through this again in a couple of years? Or do we want to try to hold on to somebody for 10 or longer? So that was just kind of one of my observations. They both had really good points, and I'm leaning one way, but I just didn't know if we were going to hear about what you're leaning towards.
We'll have discussion, and I'm sure it'll be one of the issues that comes up, at least from my perspective.
All right.
Also gives us a chance to talk to staff that spoke to them
Right.
too as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that's probably one of my biggest things. I really want to talk to all the department heads and get their input, because they're going to be working with them every day. I only have to see them theoretically once every 2 weeks.
At some point, it's a little bit skewed because they've already had, relations with one for several months.
Yeah.
But that's a double-edged sword for some folks, so,
Yeah, maybe.
or it could be.
Maybe.
I don't know if it is or not.
Mr. Sossaman seems very, very nice, very knowledgeable, and I was so glad he was able to just step right in running, because that's what we were wanting somebody to do. I don't think anybody expected somebody to come in here and babysit and just be a warm body in the seat. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I see that we have slated for discussion, but what I would like to do is kind of hold off on the discussion for the council meeting. Because I had some more research and people that I want to talk to, and I'm sure a lot of our constituents were watching and are going to have follow-up questions, concerns, and I wanted to be able to speak with the general public too.
Yeah,
So-
I really have nothing to add at this point
Okay.
in the discussion.
After we talk to staff, it'll be a lot easier.
Okay. With
Although I
that,
think both candidates did an excellent job. I do, and I do want to state
Yes.
that I think,
I don't think we can go wrong with either one.
no, I think they were both,
No.
both did excellent, and thank them both for their time and energy in this.
and Colin saved us a lot of days of sitting here weeding through people, so.
Yes, and Colin did an excellent job as well.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been through that before.
Okay, I'll make a
Having
motion
been
to
through that
adjourn.
before, that's
He
pretty
made a
nice.
motion to adjourn, so I'm seconding it.
Then we're out of here.
All right.